Hi. Hi and welcome. My name is Emil Meyer. I'm the Managing Director here at Jewish Culture Festival. I am very pleased that we can do this event, Art Identity and Boycott, here on the Danish Constitutional Day. I think this is an important event for talking about free speech and free expression. And that's why we wanted to do it exactly on this day, because this is usually what this day is all about. I think I would like to say a big thank you to Kaos and Kaos. There are definitely no translation for that in English. To Louise, who were the driving force in this in making this panel, and together also with Augusta Atla, who has been also a great contribution. And of course to Bjørn Nørgaard, Amir Fattal, Lina Hashim, and Allarp for being in this event. And I've been told that this event will also be presented at the Venice Biennial in November, which I think is very amazing that something that starts here in our small festival can be in the biggest event of contemporary art in Venice. So without much ado, I would say give them a huge applause. And I will give the word to Sofie, who will be the moderator.
Thank you so much. Can you, this is working, right? You can hear me. We are here to discuss cancelling, essentially. It's not an easy conversation. It's emotional. It's also political. It's very human experience. And maybe exactly because of that, it's something that we cannot avoid as a culture, but also as the art world. We are not here to create ideological camps. There's going to be no slogans coming out of this debate. We are here to have an honest and human reflection with each other, a deep conversation. My name is Sofie. Allarp. Maybe some of you know me, mostly in Danish, I suppose, if some of you are Danish. I'm a lawyer, but I'm also a journalist here in Denmark, and I'm not entirely unfamiliar with the topic of being cancelled. I have with me here a panel of exemplary and fantastic, just plain awesome artists. Bjørn Nørgaard, who has significantly influenced the art scene in Denmark. I would call him an institution in his own right. He's also a professor of fine arts. We have Augusta Atla. She's a visual artist, a poet, and a writer, and a bit of a force of nature. We have Lina Hashim, who is a photo and performance artist, a feminist. And we have an Israeli artist, Amir Fattal. He's a conceptual artist who works with video, photography, sculpture, and installation. And before opening for the general discussion, I would like to start with a personal story, your story, Amir. You have just told me that you live in Berlin, but you also spend a lot of time in Mexico. And during some of that time, one might say you had like a head-on coalition between art and identity, artistic freedom, and maybe you want to tell us what happened.
Sure. Hi, everybody. So just a little bit about me. I'm born and raised in Tel Aviv. My family is originally Iraqi Jewish. Both my parents are born in Baghdad. They came to Israel in 1950. And I lived in Israel only until the age of 21. And since then, I've been living in Germany. So I did my bachelor and master's at the Art University of Berlin. And in the past years, I lived between Berlin and Mexico City. So in Mexico City, the gallery that represents me in Germany, which is called König, they also have a gallery in Mexico City, and I have a solo exhibition with them this year. And the first 5 weeks, it was just like a normal duration of the exhibition. And then pretty much overnight, it started online. My Instagram got flooded with hundreds of messages and comments on my Instagram. And actually, there was nothing on my Instagram that even indicated either I'm Israeli, and also my Instagram is professional, so I don't put anything personal or political. It's just about me sharing my artwork. And yeah, it was very overwhelming. I thought in the beginning that it might be bots, but the more I looked into the profiles, I realized that these were actually real people, a lot of queer and artist people, so also had a lot of people in common with them. And a week after that started...
And what did they say?
Like really horrible stuff. I mean, it was a mix of a lot of things. So it was Zionist, it was very anti-Semitic, a lot of Auschwitz-related remarks, that I should be burned like my family in Auschwitz or stuff like that. It was also a lot of anti-Western, anti-capitalist. It was like a mix of ideologies. But it was very clear that my presence there was kind of like, for them, they can project a lot on me. So, of course, the Zionist thing was the main thing, but it was really a lot of different stuff. And a week after that started, I had an event at the gallery. I was doing like on Saturday, like one of those guided tours. And I'm standing there with art collectors and people. And all of a sudden I hear like a megaphone outside, people shouting like, Amir Fattal is a Mossad agent. He's a baby killer, and it was very, very awkward. And yeah, so I go outside and it was, 15, 20 people, all in masks and flags of Palestine and the Islamic Republic of Iran. And eventually we had to call the police and I had to be escorted out. And
were you afraid?
No. I mean, no, there was 15 people. I mean, it looked like a circus. I can't say that. It was also like daylight. There were a lot of people there. And during that time, it took me like another few days to speak up because I was afraid to speak up on Instagram because I don't really make political statements. And I knew also that the moment that I will speak up, there's a lot of other galleries that are working with me and they would see it. And of course, it would make things worse for me because they not only harassed me, they also found out who are the other galleries that are working with me and they started also harassing their pages. So I already got calls from Germany asking me what's going on.
So how did that affect your relationship professionally with the art world in Mexico? What happened?
I can't say that there was like anything directly with the art world. I think there was more like with the local Jewish community. And then a few days later, they came again. And at that time, they actually sprayed swastikas all over. I mean, they pretty much ruined the entire facade of the gallery. And once I posted that, then really like, it went so viral to the point that people were recognizing me on the streets because it got so much attention. And
it became a media story.
Yeah, basically. like everywhere, especially in Germany and in Mexico.
Yeah. How does that feel as an artist? And I suppose everyone would accept that that's awful. But like, what does it feel like being targeted for your nationality, identity?
It felt more strange because I felt like I was being used because they didn't have anything on me because it's not like I said something.
You're not a Mossad agent.
No, I'm not.
No. That's clear up.
But look, if I would have said something and I would have got like a backlash directed to some content that I said, I think it would have been different. But in this case, the only thing that they could find out was that I was born in Israel. They didn't even know that I'm not living in Israel for the past 25 years. But for them already, and later on I talked to the Israeli embassy, and I was told that pretty much every person who had like a public cultural event in Mexico, being a singer, a dancer, they would, if they find out that that person is born in Israel, they would come and do this demonstration. And they came with a lot of like cameras, equipment, and they were doing content. So in a way, I felt like they were using my presence in order to have an excuse to create content, putting it online, and with those online channels like on X and Telegram, that's how they were kind of reaching out their target.
Thank you. We're going to shift now to a general debate in the panel. Now, I'm going to ask you to keep it short, each one of you, because we are 4 panelists, and I want to ask you a lot of things. Firstly, I would like to have a round where you can answer the following. Is your art political? Yeah. Yes.
It was said in the modernist and before the 60s, all political art is bad, and all good art is political. The modernism said that, and it was, of course, because art itself, as art, has an impact on society, not because of any message, but because of the poetry. That is very important to understand the world, not by poetry. But in the 60s, everything became material for art. Art was a source for society, and art should found the base for the new society. We didn't want any socialism or capitalism. We want poetry to be the real source how to create the new society. A little later, Joseph Beuys in the early 70s, he had the expression in English, it's called social sculpture, which is a little misunderstanding, because he said the plastic sculpture. And plastic is when the sculpture is still in a place where you can form it. It's clay, wax, or plaster. You can change it all the time. And that was what was interesting. We should have the society, and we have the capability to change it all the time, to remodel the society. That was the idea in the 60s.
So I paragraph.
Today, we have quite another problem.
Yes, it's true. We will get back to all those problems, but to paraphrase you, you say political art is bad, good art is political.
That was modernism.
Yes.
Yes, my work is political.
Yes, that's a great, very concise. Your art is political.
I don't think about it in this term. First of all, it's definitely not political in a way that it's about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So it doesn't have a subject. But it's a very humanistic art. So I think there are elements to it, but my art is not about preaching a certain political position. Definitely not.
Lina, what about you? In the feminism, we say everything personal is political.
Well, I think everything is actually political.
Yeah.
There is so many. Thank you. Like for my kind of work, the way I approach my work, I work with body, gender, I work with culture, representation, religion, and all of these are. I ask myself before I enter the gallery or before I enter the institution or even my studio. So the fact that everything is political and art has never been neutral, either, not even the institution. So I think art today is political.
So what I wonder then is it possible to expect the reception of art not to be political or not to be experienced through a political lens?
Yeah, but I think we have to clarify something, and I think that's what Bjørn was also trying to clarify. The political doesn't have to be the content of the artwork. It can be the very fact that the viewer has to think for himself. So, I mean, after the Second World War, people like Oscar were using a lot of effort in trying to give a humanistic space, meaning that it's not the content or the preaching, but it's the very fact that the viewer is positioned in a reflective zone, and this role is a political role. Because it's the freedom, the rights of the individual. So the artwork is not so important, you could say. The artist is not so important. The viewer and his zone of reflection is the political part. So that's how you cannot undo it as political. And that's why a lot of countries will censor art, because as more as you enforce the role of the democrat, the more you will go away from fascism somehow. So this has to be clarified. What is political art? And I think that's also what you were somehow trying to state, no?
I don't think art is political in that sense. Art is political as art. It is art that has a political impact on society. And the idea to talk about that is to change the way we talk together. And at the same time, as art is political, art is not political, because you have to rethink whatever you do. So you have to step out of the political zone to try and think again, and then step back and continue to do what you're doing.
Does any of you, or do any of you think that it is okay, reasonable, acceptable, even right to exclude certain artists because of who they are, what they believe, or where they come from, or who sent them? Is that kind of censorship, and not because of the art, but because of the identity or the beliefs of the artist, would that be okay in certain connections? Let's have a round.
No, absolutely not. It's not okay. But this is reality. In reality, I see a pattern of reducing everyone to a nationality or sometimes an identity of something you don't like, or I don't know. It's sometimes you get limited by the institutions of art and the gatekeepers. It's like, for my concerns, I have been reduced to a lot of things in my life as an artist, and I think you too. And sometimes I have to like argue, but even though I have a Muslim background or a name, that doesn't mean that I'm practicing Islam or anything. And I don't. And in every interview I get with a magazine, they always ask, "Are you a practitioner?" And I'm like, what does that have to do with my art? So sometimes we need to look into the art institutions and the receptions of art, and from there we can actually begin asking who is allowing to reduce who and how.
Right.
But we, as you say, we are living in a real world. In the real world, Russian artists were excluded left, right, and center. The musicians were not being invited anywhere, etc. Is that okay in any way? I'm putting you on the spot.
No, because for me, art is a dialogue, and you cannot have a dialogue if you only amplify one voice, one side of the story, and not the other side of the story. But I think we're living in a bigger context right now, where, first of all, identity politics is probably the biggest thing in art for the past 15 years. So all of this happened since October 7th in a very specific, culture that we maybe did 20 years ago. And I feel a lot of institutions are now looking at the world from that prism. And in that prism, we already know there is a very clear narrative. And the problem with this type of narrative is that if you're not part of this narrative, you are excluded. So it's not just who you are. It's like, do you work for the narrative? Do you fit in this narrative? And if you don't, then there is a problem. So the main issue right now, it's more like the fact that let's call it the gatekeepers or the institutions, the people who are there are really protecting this type of narrative that they not.
That pretty much every student in this class was all making art that had to do something with their background. That was the only way to make art through this prism. But students see, very sensitive of what is happening, and I think it's a little. I mean, I think it's changing now because like everything, nothing stays relevant forever, and of course, it has a very important role. Why it happened the moment it happened? This kind of, the fact that women and other minorities were not represented. Like everything, for me, I have a bit of a fatigue in that. And now also because my identity doesn't fit to this narrative, I also feel the backlash of it.
What about the two of you? Do you agree that one can exclude a Russian because he or she is Russian?
No, I mean, I just came home from the Venice Biennale and I've seen it almost since I was 13 because I lived there as a child, and it was a very horrifying experience. I was very saddened, and I saw, let's say, the peak. I hope it's the peak. Let's see how it goes. I think that's the peak of a kind of a darkness in my visual arts, meaning that it has become totally normal to exclude and to cancel and to ghost, and to a point where I meet people from my art scene and they got angry that I went into this pavilion to, of course, see everything. As I don't believe in this way of structuring the art scene. So to see the strike on the Biennale, where, I don't know, 8 pavilions were closed, the 8th of May, big pavilions like UK, France, Belgium, Holland, Korea, Japan, with Palestine posters in the front of the door, not being able to access because there was a strike against Israel on the 8th of May. All this noise, and nobody really cared about Russia. I mean, there was a Pussy Riot demonstration as artwork in front of the Russian pavilion, but everybody applauded it, and it was great. Of course, I loved it too, but there was no strike against Russia. So let's say I'm logical. If we do this, if we say that art is a zone for human rights, if we do this, we have to treat all the pavilions equally. Then we have to take into account China. We have to take into account Congo. I mean, there are so many countries and pavilions. I need a new logic. The problem right now with art, it has lost its logic.
And you actually gave me a code word because Bjørn, you worked for a long time in China. Has that ever presented you with any problems that you've been cancelled because of that?
No, because I knew how to be. And sometimes we had a little problem, but Chinese are very kind people. So when they want to censorship you, they send small warnings. So it's a very complicated and very unpleasant.
Did you ever have problems here in Denmark because you worked in China?
Sometimes, yes.
And what did you say then?
But I ignore it. I think that's the best thing you can do as an artist. Of course, I know some artists can get in serious trouble. I know that. And they can get in very serious trouble. But basically, don't.
Can I ask you, you have been around for a while, Bjørn. How has the conditions for making art, for freedom of expression, for being an artist in the world changed, in your opinion?
In the 60s, there was a lot of people who got very angry when we did what you now call performances. We called it event and action, because for the public, that was very unusual. So there was fight very often, and also from the institutions, but not political. The political was more from the cultural political side. When you did something they didn't like, I was accused from the speaker's chair in the parliament in Denmark many times, and they were very unsatisfied that I was supported. So, of course, we have censorship in Denmark too, but we always can discuss it. There are also other kinds of censorship which has a much more serious impact on the artist, which we heard about here.
Yeah.
And we don't have had that in Denmark until now.
Right. So it seems to me, at least, that the issue of the Jewish state, of Israel, and of the war in Gaza is different to anything that we have seen for a long time, at least. It has like a different, you talked about that you felt like an object in somebody else's culture creation, or maybe even own kind of social media artwork. How do you see the scene, the art scene, and our culture around freedom of expression that has changed since the war in Gaza and since the 7th of October? Sorry, Lina.
Absolutely, and it's changing all the time, I would say. I believe that I've seen a lot of artists from both ways. I mean, when I was in New York last year, I lived in New York for 5 months, and in the residency program where I automatically met a female. She was from Qatar, and we fell into talking to each other in Arabic because it was very nice and comely. So, and there was an Israeli artist who actually has roots in Iraq, like you, and he never approached me, and he never talked to me, and he was like every time when we were together with the other artist having some he had like chosen another way, and then I decided actually to go to him and say, hey, I read something that you're from Iraq. And he was, yeah, I am. And he was so happy that I actually approached him, because he was feeling that he had to be ghosting himself because of being Israeli or because of representing Israel in that matter. And it was actually really nice to connect through art and to look into art in another way and to talk about our heritage and other stuff. So, yeah, what was the question?
No, the question is really how has that changed? Because it has changed quite profoundly, right? This particular discussion is different. Yeah. Bjørn wants to say
I think that as all of you and artists must face is censorship is here to stay. So it is to develop tactic. How do we work as artists within censorship?
Is it aspirational even? Can it be?
All over.
All over, yeah.
We can't avoid censorship is here to stay. So we have to invent how do we as artists work within this condition, and how do we in our artwork fight against it and include that in our consciousness how to be an artist.
Yeah, but that's not the problem, Bjørn. In this case, since 7th of October, it's not necessarily institutions that is the problem anymore. It's not necessarily the leader of a museum or a gallery. I mean, now for Amir, slowly the galleries can become a problem too. And I talked for an hour with Belou, who represents Israel, the pavilion. And after he exposed his work, normally you would win your career by representing your country or in the Venice Biennale, but almost the opposite happened to his career. So a gallery in Berlin slowly paused him, taking him away from the internet. A gallery in Romania devaluated him from representing artists to visiting artists. Some writers who had said they would write on his work suddenly never replied, even feeling his space empty. People didn't enter. I mean, I was there, but there were police guards in front of the pavilion. It was a quite surreal experience. I never thought this would happen to me. And that doesn't necessarily come from the leaders of the institution. Of course, the Venice Biennale had problems. The different is that it comes now also the censorship from artists themselves. And this I have not experienced. I don't know, you can agree or not, but I have not experienced this before in my lifetime.
But look at J.K. Rowling and the trans issue. I mean, there's been a lot of cancelling of her from the creative community because of that.
I have not seen it in visual arts before, okay. I must say.
What do you think? I mean, how has it changed?
I think the context is, first of all, social media, because I think we had like this kind of perfect storm since October 7th that, there's other geopolitical forces in it. I mean, we know that when it comes to TikTok, which is the main platform for most people under 30, you can see the data, and it's Chinese owned. It's 1 to 40 or 1 to 60 pro pro-Palestinian to pro-Israeli. So for everyone pro-Israeli, there's like 60. So, and people are exposed to that also on Instagram. I mean, Russia is using it also, but with Russia it's kind of hard to see, but we know that they're very active in this.
Very good.
And like after October 7th, I mean, I saw a lot of curators post horrible things, and a lot of it was misinformation, so that was really amazing to me to see how extreme people from the art world, and I think because everything is out in the open through social media and is being circulated so fast. I mean, it also happened to me in both sides, right? The moment I got viral, I got so much more support from the Jewish community, but then also so many people who would have hated me found out about it. So, and I think because the art world is not exempt from the context of the implication of social media, we see this kind of extremes into both sides, because that's exactly what the algorithm does. You know, it always brings this kind of content that enrages people, and artists are human just like everyone else, and they are affected by it like everyone else. And I think that's what created, you know, the umbrella that kind of enabled this thing.
So we see something different from the 1930s, right? Or other totalitarian periods of human existence, where we've seen a political entity, a regime that says we don't like the intellectuals and we certainly don't like the artists. And there are a lot of people that would just have to shut up and communicate in a different way. And so that was a certain period of time. Now we have a different period of time where it's really dominance by numbers and electronically enabled. Right? So what is that? I've been on the receiving end of the same barrage of many messages. Curiously, a lot of people beauticians in Denmark and people who do nails and that kind of thing were very upset with me, and that was very curious. But how does that change, like the fact that we have movements, political movements, or for lack of a better word, who can enforce social control? How does that affect creativity? It's also, as we hear from Amir, a very personal thing. Lina, what do you say?
I actually wanted to comment on what we've talked about before, because this has had like a huge impact on both ways. The conflict has this way of seeing things in different ways. It's not only the Israelis artists who has been reduced to their identities, the Palestinians too, and there has been a lot of canceling of shows with Palestinian artists, even though they don't work politically, like in abstracts or something else. So the conflict had gained some kind of a weight on both ways, and I believe that institutions and a lot of artists, as you said, need to just, you know, art is like a battlefield. Everyone wants to fight for something, and sometimes they actually don't know what the fight is about. It's a battlefield, I would say, and I believe and I hope that artists have the courage to take a step into being negotiators or to being,
But actually, I want to say one more thing, because you brought J.K. Rowling. I mean, but there is a difference is, and because when in the art world, the claim to cancel Israeli artists, it's a tool. It's a tool to put pressure on Israeli artists, thinking that will bring a change to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That's a very different situation when, you know, a celebrity says something that goes against, you know, the cultural norm, and they decide. My issue with the art world is that I haven't seen any evidence that this helps anything. And, you know, being the Israeli here, even though I don't live in Israel, I do know what my Israeli friends are doing. And for the past 3 years, I mean, this thing in Israel didn't start on October 7th. It started the year before, when Netanyahu tried to do this judicial reform. And my friends, the artists, have started since January 23, demonstrating so fiercely. We're talking about once or twice a week. And then, of course, that bled into the post-October 7th with the hostages. So my friends have demonstrated against this specific government for 3 years, almost twice a week. I mean, I don't know any other country in the West where people were demonstrating that fiercely. But the way the people from the art world, they want to punish exactly the people who want to bring change. And this is my issue, my main issue with the art world. I understand the frustration and that they want to do something, but if at the end of the day, what they're doing is punishing Israelis and not trying to understand that the Israelis that they're punishing are the ones that are trying to build bridges and bring change, then I don't really see
But
what's the point.
would you have understood the reaction in Mexico City better had you been in alignment with Netanyahu about his policies?
No, but this is also, by the way, because I spoke up, a lot of other artists contacted me. This doesn't only happen to Israeli artists, this happened to Jewish artists. I have so many Jewish artists that have no relationship to Israel, and it happens to them as well, because the approach from the other side is, if you're not speaking up, then your silence is complicit. And it's enough to be Jewish for those people to see the complicity of them not aligning, with their.
What kind of demand is it that you're sensing of yourself?
No,
Like, what is it you need
Well,
to
first
do?
of all, they told me to my face. I mean,
Okay.
it's not, I didn't have to imagine. They told me that I need to make a statement on my Instagram denouncing Israel, talking about the genocide. And if I don't do that, that they are allowed to harass me. And I don't know how I would denounce my Jewishness, because I can denounce that.
Okay, so Bjørn, you say art then needs to go and challenge the established censorship. Then you use art to work around that. So how do we use art to work around social control via the internet?
We have
That's a very good question.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, and you are a professor.
Yeah, no.
Yes, emeritus.
I'm an old man now. I think the young people should. But I will say one thing, because that is also a part of the problem which is created. It's created by the digital media. All this garbage running around in the air, which makes people completely crazy in their heads.
Yes.
Because so much misinformation is spread around, and it is almost impossible for a normal, sensible person to say anything that anybody will listen to. And I will very shortly, because I was talking about the 60s. Very shortly, in the beginning of this digital area, we believed that this was the freedom for everybody to express themselves. But what has happened is the most profound censorship in the world. Very, very few people control all information which is thrown around. And through that, they can control how people are thinking. So we have to find a way to fight that before we can get into a dialogue between different positions in an ordinary, civilized way, so we can, in a constructive way, try to find out how to go on with each other. And what is important, is we have to start thinking. What we can do as human beings is we can think. And we don't only think with the brain. We think with the whole body, with hands, with eyes, with smell, with everything, with the feet. A computer has no feet, no eyes, no hands. So to compare a computer with human thinking is the biggest danger for our world at all. And to get a better dialogue is to think and to be very aware of those media is a threat to any dialogue between people in this world.
So we need to pull the plug on the social media. I said that, and people, they were like, I said that in Denmark, and people, they were like, yeah, she's such an autocrat. She's such a monster.
I just wanted to add, and I think that's why I was happy to participate in the debate and that we will continue the debate in Venice, is that I think, as it sounds utopian perhaps, but I think I realized that the social media is a battlefield for politics, for sure. And so we have this battlefield, enjoy. So my little revolution is that let's create the zone of art again as a free zone where the artist is not equal to a nation. So, because in a way we are going back to a nationalistic idea of the artist if we continue like this. So my little revolution is to say, let's start and rethink the artist as not being a representative of a nation.
So, like Lina says, reclaim yourself as an individual and not an identity, right? Yeah. But how do you? I mean, how does it affect you? And I'm asking this more broadly. We've talked about censorship, but like, there's also a certain fear, right? There's a fear of loss of income. There's a fear of safety. There is a fear of not being appreciated, liked. How do you work around fear of the public backlash or public appreciation?
Well, I get cancelled, and sometimes I'm not invited to interviews when I have a solo show or a public commission, and sometimes I'm silenced in other ways, and sometimes I feel that what I'm saying is changed over time when it comes to the journal. And yeah, this is like, there's so many kind of punishment, but yeah, I've been cancelled a lot of times because of my art.
Can you use it as like a fuel in your art? Does it make you angry and more creative or more provocative in your art? And how does it affect you?
It doesn't affect me, actually. No, I don't know why, but it doesn't really affect me. I know what I'm doing and what I'm standing for, and I believe in it. And I think my turn will come. I mean, I've applied to the academy, for the art academy in 10 years, and I got in my 8th. So this is like
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I believe that any artist believe in what they think and what they own. It's owned by your body. You don't actually. I don't think artists do their art to get money or to get foundations and stuff. I don't think that. I think that there is a necessity of doing what you believe in, and yeah.
But it does have I mean, now you've felt the consequence, Amir. Like, how do you work around that? Can you use it as inspiration or challenge the hegemony, as Bjørn says?
No, I mean, I have to say my political activity is very real and political, and it doesn't happen in the art sphere. It happens in the real world. You know, I go and I demonstrate. I didn't want to be political on Instagram. It was a very conscious decision. That for me, social media is not a place that I feel it's the right place to be political, because I don't believe that it's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had to deal with it. You know, it's like it was not by choice. You know, but the moment that happened, first of all, it took me 10 days to do it because I was afraid of the consequences. But then it came to the point that I had to say something, and I knew that that galleries will cancel, and they did. Like 2 months later, 2 of my solo exhibitions now have been canceled.
Wow.
One in France and one in Spain. But on the other hand, I feel like I have to speak up, and every time that I do say something, I get so much support from so many artists who tells me that they are proud of me because they did not do it when it happened to them. And at this point, look, it's not nice to be reduced to the artist that now everybody's knowing me because what have happened to me. And at the end of the day, I am an artist. I have a body of work, you know, that I'm still very much engaged and working in, but this whole thing is completely shadowing my artistic activity. And this is not by choice. I mean, I do hope that at some point, either I can do both, but by now I've already done it, you know. So and at this point, I feel like I will continue talking about this because especially I feel like I have a beef with the art world right now, you know, and I'm not happy with the situation. I see, you know, how accepted it is right now. It's also the fact that, you know, the people who were attacking me were doing it out in the open. There was no shame about it. They were doing it from their own profile. The things that they were writing, everybody could see. And this is what really amazed me. It's how acceptable it has become because they know that when they say those anti-Semitic things about me, there would be no repercussions. And for me, on the other hand, I have not said anything, but they put me in a position that I'm guilty of something, you know? And this is the situation that I'm trying to change. But I know that right now, the atmosphere in so many of the institutions is very much against me, but I feel like somebody has to say something, you know.
We've talked about what one can do as an artist, but what is needed from the art world? So the curators, the museums, the investors, Bjørn, what can the art world do to safeguard freedom of expression?
Well, I think you have to ask them.
But what do you want them to do?
What I want them to do?
Yes.
I want them to, instead of trying to follow all strange kinds of political signals, did their job as to transform the ideas from the artist to the public. And don't make all this political censorship. But instead of looking at the artwork, and looking at the artwork not if you are Palestinian or a Jewish or a European or from Russia or from wherever you are, but look at the work and the thinking behind the work. And I think to close a pavilion because it's a Russian artist, or to boycott an Israeli pavilion because he's an Israeli, I don't like that. And I'm very sorry that we have got there in this time. And I think that this social media has a big part of the problem.
Right.
They are really.
Can you get closer to what is it the social media does to our brains? You said it made us crazy.
They prevent us to have a dialogue. On social media, you don't have a dialogue. You are
You are presenting.
Monologue.
It's monologue, yes.
Social media is monologues. It's not dialogues. And it's about to cry higher and higher and more and never listen and never understanding. And that is what makes this situation we are in Palestine, in Jerusalem, in Ukraine, wherever. It makes it so difficult to get a constructive dialogue. How do we get on? And even in art, we are now influenced by this stupidity.
If you,
can I say one more thing? Because for me, I feel like right now it's mostly the Israelis and the Jews, and what they need to do is actually to call out these people. Because first of all, what they do is also illegal, as we saw in the Venice Biennial. If people don't know, the jury didn't want to judge the Israeli pavilion, and the artists in a way told them, we actually talked to lawyers, we can go to the EU committee, and what you're doing is illegal, you know, and they checked and they realized this is discrimination. So the artwork, what they're doing is also completely illegal by any standard, and then what the jury did, they quit. But the issue is, A, we need to call them out on anti-Semitism and on anything that is discriminatory by any sense or means. The other thing is, if they really want to help the the Israeli-Palestinian cause and conflict and not punish artists, they already can take a look at what Israeli and Arabs and Palestinians are doing in Israel, you know, because there's already enough ways that people on the ground are trying, you know, because for me, this is not Israel against Palestine. This is moderates against extremism. Mm-hmm. And the people on the ground who are moderate, who want to have a dialogue, who believe in two-state solutions, they already exist, and these are the people they are trying to cancel. And the Israeli artists are fighting two fights right now. They're fighting against a right-wing government that also trying to cancel them inside Israel and take away opportunities and funding, and they're fighting against the international art world. And this is the insane situation. But the people in the international art world, they don't really look into the complexity, because all they want to do, it's just this kind of performance of we care, and then therefore we just want to punish one side, and they don't look into the complexities of education in Israel and in Palestine, and how you can actually change, because at the end of the day, there's only one way, it's election. And you have to shift the Israeli society to be more moderate right now, and you have to shift also the Palestinian society to be more moderate. So this is the only way that the international community needs to intervene. Everything else is counterproductive, and we need to call them out on it. This is the reality.
But it's not as such but it's not as we've talked about, it's not the international community, it is actors, it's civilian actors mostly.
No, it's
right?
both. It's of course it's institutions, it's the UN. I mean, this is very deep. This is not just
like, what do you need from the art world institutions? What do they need to do?
To amplify the voices that are trying to create a different reality on the ground in Israel. This is what needs to happen, and not cancel these people.
To counter it with politics, essentially.
Of course, you know, if somebody is really interested in actually doing something about it, they need to be a little bit more involved than signing, you know, these cancellation letters. You know, because of course it's the easiest thing just to sign a letter and to post, you know, but that doesn't help anything. It just creates a atmosphere of hostility that end up in what happened to me, you know, because these people, they all live in this place that they see what other people are doing, and they normalize it. And I think at the end of the day, whatever you normalize towards Israelis and Jews, you normalize against yourself, because everybody else is looking. You know, me is like as a gay, Jewish gay man, you know, living 25 years outside of Israel, I've never experienced any type of anti-Semitism coming from the right. But the amount of anti-Semitism that I experienced from the art community and the queer community in the past 3 years, we're talking about on a weekly basis. And the difference is, when they discriminate against me, they actually think that they're doing something good, as opposed to somebody from the right that they have their own point of view of racial whatever. I can deal with that, but at least they're not thinking that they're like being a better person by it. And the people from the left, this is what they think, you know, and that's a huge problem.
I just wanted to bring you in. Like, what do you think the art world needs to do to detach themselves from being overly focused on identity and maybe even lack of nuance and kind of quick positions to complex issues?
A miracle?
What has been most frustrating for you in your work with the art world? Like, has the institutions and the art world impacted your creative life?
I mean, well, I have been struggling with being actually myself, or standing for myself, representing myself, or even the culture of the idea of the culture I come from. So what I have been I've been writing a lot and lecturing a lot about representation topics, where I can see there is a pattern of doing a lot of solo shows in Copenhagen without really presenting the Muslim artist, even the Muslim artists who not even practitioners, but comes or have a middle name that is Islamic, they are ghosted, like have been ghosted for ages in the institutions of arts. And even though they come to the applied for academies, have academic backgrounds and studied academics in Copenhagen, they are still struggling with being representing their identity or nationality, I believe. And there is also another limit of expectations. They expect you to produce work that is engaging with anti-Islamic or something, because when you do that, even for writers, then you get the access, the full access.
Okay, so they in fact just, if you would, they box you into a certain political
Stereotype.
framework, or, yeah, a stereotype. So if
Exactly.
you would just comply with that narrative, then you would have an open access.
I believe, like in your case, if you were one of the artists who actually had been more visible with your how can I say it, like being engaged in what is happening in Israel right now, you would have another kind of light and another kind of because I like Bjørn Nørgaard say, everything is in the social media, and we're seeing some kind of visions or ideas that are put it into our minds, like this is what has to be, and we cannot actually negotiate from that. It's like, yeah.
So your ideal art world, talking about the curators, the museums, and the people with the money, and the people who organize things, what kind of mindset do they need to snap into in this time?
Obviously, to never reduce the artist to be representative for a nationality or identity or gender or sexuality. I mean, we're back to the basics.
Right. Do you agree, Augusta and Bjørn?
Yes, I do. And I think that what you were talking about, Amir, that we are not listening to the Palestinian and the Jewish population who want to have a dialogue, who want to have another situation in the Middle East. We are only listening to them who is making a lot of noise. We are not listening to those people who really want to talk about how do we together create a future in this Palestinian-Israeli area. And how do we do it? And how can we from outside, instead of closing down and making censorship, start to thinking what is going on and what do the voices one another thing really do? And I agree totally. Many years ago, we was in an art exhibition in a kibbutz, Allarp, at the Genezareth Lake. We were staying there for some weeks and traveling around also. It was 1 year after, or half a year after, Yitzhak Rabin was murdered, and then Hamas began to blow up bombs in the buses. So wherever we were going, there was also always 2 soldiers in the buses. And when we was there also in the West Bank, we saw 2 young, we was visiting a Danish journalist on the West Bank, and there was 3 young Palestinian boys making fun, and he should buy some coffee and so on. And then next day we called him. The same evening, some Israeli patrol passed by, and this young Palestinian boys was still joking around, 2 were shot. So it's so short between to making fun and a tragedy. And it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And that we have to talk about. And there are still Palestinians, there are still Jewish people who want another direction. and we don't listen to it, and we should do that. I agree with Amir.
Yeah, I just want to add that. Of course, one thing is the actual political situation, and if the art people actually care, as Amir was saying, they could do things if they truly cared. Another thing is, for me, like a dry art historian and an art theorist, if I see my art scene and the thinking in the art scene be so straightforwardly that the artwork and the artists are straightforwardly, let's say, translatable, that's very sad for me, because my favorite artists are Shakespeare, Nabokov, Lars von Trier, Pasolini, all these artists that actually do artworks that they don't agree with. I mean, so this sense of meta distinction between what you're creating and who you are as an artist, this space has to be reclaimed somehow. Right now, it's almost like the institutions of art think either you do not political art or you do political art. But maybe you just do something difficult, and maybe the difficult has to be there too. I mean, this narrowing down of the reduction to equal the artist's opinions and the artwork's values is terrifying for me. It's simply terrifying.
You feel abandoned, Amir, by the art scene?
By the art scene, yes.
Yes.
By the Jewish community, not.
All right.
Because I do want to say something. I mean, when this thing exploded, as I said, it went both ways. So yes, I did get exhibition canceled. And I think if it only would have ended like that, I would have been very bitter about it.
Yeah.
But the amount of support that I got from Jews all over the world, to the point that they were finding out which galleries represent me and buying my paintings directly from the galleries or from me, that was amazing, because at the end of the day, the only way that I make money and support myself is by selling my art. Losing 2 solo exhibitions in 1 year, it's a huge financial strain. And it's really the Jewish community that was so active and so deliberate in lifting me up. And that really, I would say, really balanced the experience.
We have time for some questions. Yeah. And we have several. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this discussion. My name is Artemis Alcalay. I'm a Jewish visual artist from Athens, Greece. So art is supposed to be a universal language with its metaphor and symbolism, but it seems that nowadays it's not universal. It has to be divided. The ones who are against Israeli and Jewish artists are the moral ones, as Amir said. There is a morality. They have a superior morality against all the others who are not. And anti-Semitism today, it's a global crisis. It's not just a trend that might pass into years. It's a global crisis recognized by everybody. And this selective sensitivity is alarming, it's shocking. And of course, we recognize everybody's right to exhibit, like, let's say, the Palestinian people who have suffered so much as well. And this is where everybody would go to visit, even myself, because I'm interested in their art, in their expression. But if anybody dared to organize an exhibition of Israeli artists or of Jewish artists, it would be a total disaster. So this sensitivity, this selective sensitivity, for me, it's a great danger for society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see there's a comment and not a question. Yeah. Right?
No.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I want to ask one question. What is the reason of so much obsession with Israel? Can you answer this question? And for me, it's not logic because the 7th of October was a Palestinian attack on Israel. Why should be anti-Semitic? Why should be condemnation of Israel?
Does anyone want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say something, you know, and this is something that I have a little bit of a problem with, which I've noticed it's happening on both sides, and which this kind of like litmus test of, you know, that if you're a Palestinian, you have to condemn the 7th of October. If you're Israeli, you have to, I mean, I think both have suffered so much. And the issue is, at the end of the day, you know, Israelis have so much pain, it's hard for them to see the pain on the other side, and the same thing is for the Palestinian. And I think it's important, instead of like asking disloyalty questions of people on both sides, it's actually people from the outside need to be the one who actually hold the pain of both people, you know, because it's too emotional for each side to do it for the other side at this point. I mean, we're all just humans, but I don't like this asking of questions of, you know, that you have to, if you don't say that thing right now and you don't agree with me, then, you know, the conversation is over. And, you know, I think this is something that we need to be very mindful about.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. It's the spring. The spring, sorry. Bjørn, did you want to add something?
I agree very much with Amir, and I don't like rhetoric questions, because then your answer is already defined. So you can't give an answer on a rhetoric question.
Right.
But I will say, the world got two shocks. One shock was the 7th of October, and the second shock was what happens in Gaza. Both shocks is still two shocks too much.
And I would add a third, possibly, the cognitive warfare online in every direction, I think was a third shock. We have some, yes.
Hi.
Maybe we should get 2 or 3 questions at the time, and then for the remainder of the time, yes.
Hi. I have a question. I'm Lærke. I'm a journalist for Art Magazine, and I have a question about your artistic practice. The rising censorship, do you find it influences your praxis in a way that it either fuels the politics in your art, makes it more political, or either urges you to maybe sometimes dial it back a bit? Does it make sense? Does it influence your artistic practice, the way you do your art?
Let's take the next question also.
I mean, I'll just say quickly that for me, you know, having all these identities, as I said before, I don't take part right now with identity politics, because I feel that the way I see how identity politics is in the art world right now, it's discriminating against me, and I just don't want to be part of it. My artwork, I'm assuming most of you don't know, a lot of it's the relationship between lived experience and simulated experience in technology, especially the relationship between artificial intelligence and painting. And what I actually like about what I'm doing right now, that using AI, you get the complete opposite of identity politics, which is actually everything that we have in common as humans. And for me right now, this is my own political thing. It's the fact that I'm actually turning my back against, you know, the place that I feel has rejected me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree very much with you, Amir, and also with Artemis. But I would like to emphasize that it's known not only in visual arts that Jews and Israelis are abandoned. It is also in the university, teachers, and in many other fields. And it's not only in Denmark, it's also all over the world. For example, I can tell you about here in Denmark, I'm one of the organizers of this festival, that we tried to make a film festival 2 years ago. We started and we asked different cinemas here in Denmark if they would like to be a part of Jewish film days. Not Israelis, but Jewish. And the answer was silence, except from one cinema. Another one said, no, I would love to help you, but I'm afraid of the consequences, meaning graffiti and demonstrations and all such kind of things.
But everyone wants to know which cinema said yes.
Yeah, doesn't matter. But the problem is the silence from the political and the people who are claiming themselves as meaning as
opinion makers.
Opinion makers. The silence of abandoning Jewish artists and all the rest. I can tell you that the same cinema was screening films with like with Golda, about Golda Meir, and Hafner, about a survivor of the Holocaust, and different other big films from Hollywood with Jewish themes. So what can we do about this? And not to keep silence. So one of the points is for the festival here is not to keep silence.
Right. That's a broad, good question to just maybe have a round of answers. What do we need to do? How can we make the surrounding society step up in this time? Other than pull the plug on social media, which I think is going to be difficult.
Yeah. Can I say something about this? I'm sorry if I'm taking on. I'm not mad at the galleries. You know, I didn't name the 2 galleries that decided not to work with me. They're not bad people. They're private businesses. The art world is already very difficult. They need to protect their employees. The harassment works. And it's not fair. It's not fair, and I don't have an answer to it, you know, so I'm talking about it. I don't want to name the galleries because at the end of the day, it's also not their fault, you know, so it is very effective, you know, this type of harassment, and I don't have an answer of how to solve it. It's just like a very shitty situation.
What did the rest of you say, Lina?
Oh, I have a lot of things to say. I'm trying to do it shortly, but it's a miserable situation for everyone. It's a miserable situation for everyone. And I've seen the same pattern in ages because being a part of Muslim culture. So I think I really need to reclaim the idea of being a human being more than being part of a religion of identity, back to the basics. We are human and we need to remember that. I don't think there is a solution right now, actually. I don't believe there's any solution. We need to just wait and have a dialogue, as Bjørn said. More dialogues, more talking, more invitation, more of that.
Yes. Meet, talk with more talk, no canceling.
Yes, yeah, I think also when I was visiting the Biennale, I took the chance to talk to curators around the world, so in Italy and in Athens, because I've lived so many years abroad. I used the opportunity to contact people and just get a coffee and ask them similar questions, what to do. And it's also difficult in Athens, it's also difficult in Italy, and I think to do these kind of debates, it's almost the only way around it right now. I cannot see so many other possibilities. If there are other ways, we should do it. But to show people that we can talk, and it's possible to talk, it is, I think, the only way. And to answer your question, if this situation evoke my own practice, for me it does a lot, because I've always worked with the historiography of art history. So because I realized quite young that there were lacking women artists and the female gaze and women's sexuality in the historiography of art history. So I have always worked somehow with the collective consciousness of what we forget or what we seem to erase or dig or put under the ground. So this situation, even if it's very painful to work with, it does change my work quite a lot. I feel like a seismograph of the thinking and also of emotions. And to be honest, in my work right now, I have discovered a Berlin Wall that I didn't think was there. And this is going to enter my work. And that means that I feel the art scene has reinvented a Berlin Wall that I thought actually fell. So, and what I mean by this is that DDR had a point of view of the artwork as propagandist. And so if you didn't follow that from the DDR, from the Soviet, from this idea of the propagandist, you were somehow excluded. I'm not saying exact same is happening, but in my artistic practice right now, there have been erected a Berlin Wall. And this comes from the art scene. I didn't invent it. And this will enter my work for sure. And this is very surprising. I never thought I would deal with a Berlin Wall. And actually, Sigmar Polke and Gerhard Richter had to flee East Berlin to study in art academy, where they didn't have to defend a propagandist ways of making art. So I almost felt, right now I feel as if I'm Gerhard Richter and I want to escape East Berlin, but I can't find the Berlin Wall. So I'm trying to find the Berlin Wall. So it does enter my practice. It will change. Yeah.
The most difficult things to deal with is the public opinion, because the public opinion has no person to talk to. And to change that, what you are talking about, is very difficult. But we have to, somehow or the other. I have no answer now, but it is possible. But it's not easy.
Now, I sense that we are nearing 7 o'clock. Is that right? What time is it? 4 minutes. Okay. I think we will have to then end the debate here with, and I will maybe summarize. Okay, is it a very, very quick question?
Yes.
Yes, okay. One last.
I cannot be sure it's a quick question. It depends.
But you can do it.
I can
try.
I will present my question. I've heard from several of you artists that it's because of social media. But I followed the situation in Palestine, and there is a genocide going on, and there is apartheid. And I want to ask you, why are you not talking about apartheid and genocide and occupation and ethnic cleansing, not only in Palestine, but also in Lebanon? And why are you only talking about social media as a problem?
Okay, so
It's not the subject.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have all questions, so thank you for your question, and I really believe that we have to respect all opinions in here and to have a dialogue. We're not talking about that because this was not the theme. We're talking about art.
Okay, we will.
Why people are boycotting Israeli artists is because of the genocide and apartheid.
Well, I don't think you've been listening. We are discussing exactly whether it is.
We are discussing boycott, and boycott is happening because of these things.
Okay.
So what? If you're not addressing the things, you're not talking.
Please, would you? I would like you to act calm. We are not trying.
You're silent.
No, we're not silent. We're actually
We
taking
would like
discussion.
please, we would like to have a calm discussion.
But
Please.
thank you for your opinion.
Lina is awesome. And with that, I would like to paraphrase this discussion as follows. We have decided to end the internet. No, to end social media. Bjørn is amazing. We also decided that it is very important to extract the artist out of the preconceptions of identity. We want the art world to safeguard freedom of expression and artistic expression. We also want the surrounding world not to fall victim to pressures of society and stand up to protect people who are artists, whoever they are and whatever gender, minority, society they belong to. Would that be a fair paraphrasing? Yes? Do you have a last word, Bjørn, and then we will end the debate?
I would say that the important thing is to have more of these kinds of dialogues. And even I understand the frustration of the young man. We cannot in 2 hours save the world.
No.
But we can start the dialogue.
And we can save the art.
No,
Okay. We can try. We will try.
I actually thought that we're not excluding people, but there is someone who is being excluded here.
Yeah. We will end the debate here with an acceptance of all views and with good faith in art and dialogue. Thank you so much.